Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the next. Hello, Joe. Hello, everyone. Lots of friendly faces, lots of community champions, lots of people that make Bedfont and Feltham the place it is, which is a lot better than people would like to say in the popular press. We're not a dodgy place with a prison at the bottom of the road. We're an excellent town with strong community, fantastic history, and a really great future ahead of us. And I'm very pleased also to have some superb officers of Hounslow Council with us tonight who have facilitated this and made it possible, who work extremely hard. And as chair and as members, we are very grateful for the work they do in supporting what we do. We are the interlocutors. We are residents. Residents are councillors. Councillors are residents. But as councillors, we're between the residents and the officers, and we work together to get the best results we can. So welcome everyone, be you here for the 100th time, in which case you probably deserve some sort of an award, or if it's for your first time, you are very, very welcome. Okay, we'll start off with item 1 on the agenda, which is apologies and declarations of interest. I have an apology from my Vice Chair, Councillor Adesh Farmahan, who can't be with us tonight. Members, are there any other?
Apologize.
Councillor Shakil reminds us that he's also had the same message, so definitely Adesh will not be with us tonight. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 2 on the agenda, which is minutes and matters arising. If members could look at their minutes, which have been circulated there with you. I'm turning to page, where are we? It's page 7 in the document, is the first page of the minutes. That's page 7. Turning to page 8. Turning to page 9. You'll have to keep up, Anne, come on. So there's nothing there from members, okay. As chair, I do have 1 or 2 items to report. One was, I think it was Tony Fredjohn, and Tony is here, who was asking last time about, there's Tony's hand, about how come that Reeve Road and the Western Homes development in Feltham West, you could call it Lower Feltham, it's behind the Tesco store on the High Street. How come it came to be known as Reeve Road? Well, I'll briefly say that apparently Western Homes, in collaboration with our road naming team, way back in 2021, sent out a consultation on this, which as members, I couldn't find it looking back, I'm sure it's there, but considering the development didn't actually open until late last year, I would have said that was a bit ahead of time to be deciding what to call that road. I was told in no uncertain terms that is how it's done. With the road naming team, in collaboration with residents and developers, as sees fit. But I'm yet to discover who Mr. Reeve was. He may have been a director of Western Homes, and it's something that I know the Feltham West members, councillors Hina Mir and Medea Asim, we're not particularly happy with it, like you, Tony, so we will be letting that be known. But that's the answer to that. The community cabin, which we had some good news on at the last forum, which is going to be situated on Feltham Green near the Freddie Mercury Memorial, we're struggling at the moment with the manufacturer of that because of the materials needed. No, we're not taking questions at the moment, darling. That comes in open forum. Thank you. Who's that? Okay, we'll deal with that in open forum. So that's regarding the community cabin, which is going to be great when it comes. Okay, moving on to item 3, which is announcements. And can I just check with members actually that we did agree that these minutes are correct?
Yes.
They are correct.
Yes.
They are agreed as correct. Your silence was your acquiescence. Oh, lovely language, isn't it, here? On a Thursday night. Right, okay, announcements. Yes, we have a few announcements. And can I ask Councillor Shakil Akram, who has a piece of good news for us? Shakil.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to announce the update the Donkeywood next to the Babel Bridge, the work which have done in the Donkeywood. The first phase of the project is completed, and the second phase of the work is started in mid of the February and continue in June 2024. This is including improving the new 3 benches to allow people to sit the area and enjoy the area. Once the completed, we will have the formal opening of the new Donkeywood area opening. This is not a London Borough Hounslow land, but need to improving to make the path accessible. We are working with the Friend of River Crane Valley Partnerships Planning and the landowners to get the section improve find the budget. If you visit the Donkeywood, the half of the project has been completed. It's very good area, and then some benches also is going to put in June. Hopefully end of this year they're going to complete the area that people can access it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shakil. Maybe you could share, Shakil has a Twitter account, the Feltham North Councillors. I think they have Twitter accounts amongst them, some wonderful pictures on there. And Facebook as well, is it? What's going on in Donkey Woods? Please look out for that. I mean, these are wonderful little community wins which improve our area and enhance it. Thank you, Shakil. As promised at the last forum, I've got a brief statement to read on CIL, C-I-L, which is Community Infrastructure Levy. It's a levy on development intended to pay for the cost of infrastructure arising from new development, so surgeries, doctors, play areas for children, swings in the parks, benches, all sorts of things that should go along to improve the area where the development takes place. A couple of things to say from the period 2019 to 22, people were interested in some of the money that development, now strategic CIL is money that's raised through development right across Hounslow, and it's then apportioned. Now the local CIL is 15% of the total amount. 80% is strategic. So we can get strategic monies spent here, and we can also get local monies spent here. An example of some of these strategic monies in the last few years, I'll just run through 3 with you. The Feltham Arena Parklands was £200,000. A lot of the work that's been going on behind us here. Down in Ludlow Road Open Space, I know that's in the Hanworth Park ward, which is not part of our forum, but £130,000 there for improvements, which I know has been welcomed. In Lower Feltham on our side, the Grosvenor Park improvements, £100,000 and another £50,000 in the last year. And of course, the Donkeywood Boardwalk replacement, £100,000 in that period too, and of course more coming now. This is really good. If you were here earlier, you would have seen the Thriving Communities Fund, TCF. Michelle, I don't know whether she's still here. She may have gone. I heard a voice. She's still here. But I think she might be going at 8. I'm not sure. Basically, that's monies which the community can bid for. And some of the money that we've had, small amounts of money, tackling antisocial behaviour. It's a big subject, but the Feltham Community Development Association at Belvedere House, £30,000 for that was particularly welcome. Project Turnover, £21,500, taking control, re-engaging children aged 12 to 17 back into education, into their community and diverting them away from exclusion and to the prison pipeline. This is something I know Councillor Bath's very keen on as the lead member for children and young people in our borough. So this is all very, very encouraging. And most welcome is £22,000 for Carol at Bedfont Lane to update the garden area, outdoor space and new equipment for the centre. And there's more stuff in the pipeline, Carol, and there's a thumbs up from Carol over there, so let's give her a thumbs up back. I don't want to be turning into Boris Johnson, but I feel like I'm starting to do some of his gestures. I don't want to do that. I have the wig at home because I do an impression of him, but that's not for this evening's meeting. Okay, does anyone want to add anything to that? Well, that's fine. Okay. A couple of other announcements. The Hounslow Armed Forces veterans and serving members too, their cafe, there is a venue at the Southfield Community Centre, and it's meeting for all veterans who have served, even if it was only for one day. Do you remember Frank Spencer? Some mothers do have him. He went to the reunion, didn't he? He only served for one day in the Air Force, and everything went wrong. Anyway, so even if you've been there, even if you served for one day, on Friday the 22nd of March, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Southfield Community Centre, there will be a light lunch and refreshments. If you've served in our armed forces and given that service, and you are more than welcome to come along, please do. It is funded by the council and it's supported by our wonderful people at the Southfield Community Centre. If people want the email address to make contact with Community Cohesion at Hounslow, please see me at the end. I have it here. One final announcement. The Feltham Choral Society, and I believe there may be one or two members here, this Saturday evening, the 16th, they will be performing Schubert's Mass in C major, along with Foray's Requiem down at St Dunstan's Church in Feltham. I went at Christmas. It was marvellous. It's a wonderful choir. It's part of our community. You'll get a drink, you'll get something to eat, and you'll have a wonderful evening's music, and it's better than staying in watching Anton Deck on the television for their Saturday evening takeaway. So, and then there's the rugby as well, of course. Yeah, let's not forget that. Okay, so moving on. We now reach number. We are on to. God, these glasses don't work. The open forum. Okay, the open forum section. Now, on our open forum, we've had some questions that came in from people who can't be here tonight. I'm just going to briefly précis some of those. There was a query which Feltham West members have dealt with. A gentleman in Berberis House concerned with the potholes on Bedfont Lane on his journey to take his daughter to school each morning. No, it's not a comedy script. This is true. This has all been reported, and we have the grid references, and reports will be coming back on that. Mr. Foley of Rochester Avenue asked about the pavements on the estate, on the Grosvenor Park estate. Now, coincidentally, myself and Councillor Sim, a couple of weeks ago, we did actually go round there when we were leafleting and did a real recce on the state of the pavements on the Grosvenor Park estate. A full report has been written and it has been submitted. Is that correct, Nanny? Thank you very much indeed. So that's good. Mr. McLean of Bedfont asked about lime bikes and abandoned bikes. Okay, now, obviously lime bikes are probably a bit more successful in some parts of the borough than others, but we've worked hard here in Feltham Town Centre to make it work in other parts of the town. But we do keep seeing them discarded in odd places. You can report it. Support at li.me. So that's like lime with a dot between the I and the M. That's one, and there's also a telephone number here. And you can report it to Hounslow Highways on Fix My Street. So there are 3 ways of contacting the right people about lime bikes if that is an issue. Parking on the pavement in Bedfont High Street, that came in from another resident. I believe Councillor Ragwinder Sidhu is currently dealing with that. Do you want to briefly say something, Ragwinder? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, on Bedfont High Street, there is areas which are privately owned and there is areas which are looked after by the council, but it's not owned by the council. So the teams are working where we can put the bollards, but at the moment they are having discussions with our ownership of the areas which are owned by the council and where we can put the bollards. But like it will take, I think, at least 6 to 8 weeks to identify the things where we can have so that the traffic can be stopped, to be parked.
Thank you, Ragwinder. So it all comes down to bollards, folks. There you are, and we're working on it. Okay, one final bit on that. Feltham Green, I'm not sure whether it should have gone on here, but £250,000 for a safe family space. There are a lot of people who live near Feltham Green that live in our new flats who don't have a back garden, so this is monies to be spent on a safe area for families and children to use. And if you go back 100 years in Feltham's history, you'll know that Feltham Green was the place where traditionally families met for May celebrations, annual celebrations and things like that. So that's actually quite a nice thing. I think our past, which is a very proud one, needs to be part of our future, and that's what we all agreed with around this table. So that's good news. Okay, so that's the part of the open forum that came in via the online method. So now we'll take questions, and we have officers in the room as well. We're very lucky to have a number of officers with us tonight. So if you could raise your hands if you have a question for the open forum. And remember, the open forum is not about casework. It's not about individual pieces of things that is affecting you. It's more a sort of open question on the area that we can consider and then work on. If it's individual casework, we'll take it away. I'll take one question firstly from this lady there. Madam, could you say your name and where you live in our lovely West area?
Yeah, my name's...
And then your question.
My name is Michelle. I live in Helen Avenue, just across the park. Let me get up here. My name is Michelle. Hear me? I live in Helen Avenue, just across the park. One of my questions, as you mentioned, the parking on the pavements at Bedfont, is the parking on the pavements here, just outside the shops by the zebra crossing? Because it doesn't matter what time of day you go there, there's at least 2 or 3 vehicles. But you always get parking on the zigzags to the zebra crossing. And the number of times I've seen people go to cross the road and a car hasn't seen them because they're stepping out on the zebra crossing, but behind a car or a van. So that's something I wanted to raise.
We need to respond first, my love, to Michelle. Michelle, this sounds like an enforcement issue. I don't know whether you have anyone here from Transport. We don't have anyone here from Transport, no. But this is a Feltham North issue. We have Feltham North members. You may be more familiar with it than I am. Would you like to come in and say anything on that? But it does sound like an enforcement issue to me. Councillor Shakil.
Thank you. I think so. We have not raised the issue, receive anything before this kind of. If you can send us the email and then let me speak with the officer and then we come back to you. This one.
Yeah. Yes. If you could actually give the casework
to one of your and then we can respond to by the email. Yes. Yes, please, on the council email desk.
Okay. Turn your... hang on, I've just been told that is actually a breach of the highway code as well, which of course it is. So it's even more as an enforcement issue. Okay. TfL, yes. TfL, that they would be part of the discussion. Thank you. Hang on a minute, my love. Hang on. Can we just keep it as a meeting rather than a discussion across the room? Okay. Yes, that's noted. Thank you, my love. Thank you. And the members from Feltham North have noted that. Second question. Hang on a minute. You haven't got the microphone yet, my love.
You might have to reiterate the rules, Councillor.
If you could wait until...
Sorry.
And just introduce yourself.
I'm Julie.
Where you're
Julie
from.
Sidwell. And I live
question.
down Station Estate Road, opposite Liddell's. And you're talking about all this money that's being spent on private places and all that. There's potholes. You can't even walk down the road. You can't even go to the shop because you're falling down them all the time. And I'm getting on a bit now. I ain't a youngster no more. And now they've put tower blocks right up in my back garden. I don't even open my curtains anymore. I lost my daughter in 2021. My eldest girl passed away. No, okay. Hang on, let me finish. And the depression that it's given me, the builders, I've had 2.5 years of the noise and everything I have. I don't even open my curtains of the daytime. These girls will tell you, wouldn't you?
Thanks, Julie. We spoke briefly at the start of this meeting, didn't we?
No, we didn't.
No, I mean when you came in earlier
No,
about...
we didn't. No, we didn't talk.
Okay, we didn't talk then. But, yeah, the Station Road estate issue is a planning issue for the next rendition of the local plan and what happens to that. As far as I'm aware, as it stands...
Are we staying?
No, that's not something I can answer here tonight. I was one of the people, and people know in this room, who actually stood up for the Station Road residents back in 2018. Yeah, so we actually got an outcome that reflected the history.
Look at what they're doing to us.
okay.
They're building all these high-rise
Julie,
flats, and they're
Julie,
ruining
let me
our
respond.
lives. I've got a 90-year-old.
Yeah.
I've got a 90-year-old
Thank you, Julie.
old lady next door to me, and
Sure.
she's just come out of hospital. Can you
Yeah.
imagine? She's 90-year-old, and her last day, she's got to look at that.
Okay,
She's lived
yeah.
there all her life.
Okay, Julie, thank you. Your Feltham North...
Sorry,
That's okay, darling. No, I appreciate you feel emotional about it. Absolutely. Can I just say, if you can talk about it privately with an officer here, and you also have your members who you can refer it to, but thank you so much for sharing that with us. And yes, you do understand. But yeah, the potholes, we have a pothole... No, Julie, I'm going to have to jump in because I'm chair.
They're saying that it's not a council road.
Yeah, the Station Road estate's a private road.
It's not a private road.
It's part and part in
not
terms
a
of the
private
housing. It's
road,
part and part.
And it needs tarmacking.
Okay, you're probably right there. Julie, thank you so much for that. I will take that on. Thank you, Julie. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, that's noted, Julie. I've got it here. I've got my roller outside. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Right. Someone's put their hand up over there who I believe is an officer who wishes to... Oh, you're not an officer, but he sat at an officer's table. I'm not quite sure why.
I was late joining, so I sat here as a seat. All right, my name's Mark Lanaway. I'm from Fruin Road.
Sorry, could you say that again, please, sir?
My name is Mark Lanaway, and I'm from Fruin Road. I've got a few questions, but I'll obviously answer one at a time. The first one...
Okay, we're only taking, we should only take one per resident, but I'll take two.
Well, I was going to ask
occasion.
one first and then come back maybe, let others speak. Right, travellers within the London Borough of Hounslow. Obviously, there's a larger debate that could be had in connection with travellers and access to suitable sites for this community to live on. But my question concerns how they affect me, my fellow neighbours and the local community from the impact of whilst they are there and then the aftermath left once gone. Not only the damage caused at the entry point, the damage caused by fires on the ground, both on grass and the tarmac, the breakup of wooden fencing along and posts along to feed these fires, human waste in the areas in and around the lands occupied, the driving of vehicles, often at speed over the parks and footpaths.
Okay, could we posit the question, please, Mark? Sort of bring it to the question.
Well, I'm just trying to expand.
Yes.
It's not just a matter of travellers. It's quite an expansive thing, really. I've almost got to the end, right? So the driving at speed of vehicles, right, including over footpaths where Blenheim Park is. Now, I know I called the police several times, right? I was almost, I was close to called. My dog kept her under control. But I also know people had to jump out the way. I mean, I know it's not your issue, but the police was quite poor to respond there. Right, so my questions. Prevention is obviously better than cure, so stop the entry to the lands in the first place. Would CCTV, right, covering these entry points help? I don't know, right? They state they don't break in, but someone does, right?
I'll respond on that.
Okay.
Do we have Elliot Brooks here as well, who I think will be able to respond as a senior officer? But I'd just like to say that the obvious answer to your question, it probably would in some respect. But I know the council are doing a lot, as they did up in Bedfont, with the situation that happened there. We had a very good response last time about how the council intervenes and works with these situations and the people involved. Elliot, could I ask you just to elaborate on that? Thanks.
Yeah, I've got colleagues in the room as well who are far more involved in the day-to-day.
Yeah, could you introduce yourself, Elliot?
Yeah, sorry, I thought you'd done that. Sorry, Elliot Brooks, Director of Communities, and one of my areas of responsibility is community safety. Just to reassure you, what you're talking about really is the key in terms of trying to prevent rather than then deal with the issues afterwards. We do have a program every year of what's called target hardening. So we identify places that are seen as potential hotspots that have been targeted previously by travellers, and we can take preventative action, and that can be a whole raft of measures that colleagues in the room are far more experienced in, and I'm sure they'll have a conversation privately. But we did it last year, and it was successful in the places where we carried it out. Obviously, then you get a knock-on effect of displacement. So we're looking now at the programme for financial year 24-25, which is obviously just about to start. So we've got another pot of money allocated by the council to take those measures, and we're now just building up the evidence of where should be those places that we would target this year. So I kind of recognise some of the places you just mentioned when you spoke, sir, but if you did just pass on those details to my colleagues in case they don't know the detail, it may well be that they do, and we've got it on our radar. That would be really beneficial. Thank you.
Okay.
Is that okay, Mark, on that point?
I think so, yeah.
Thank you. I'll take a quick second one, but a quick one.
It's about travellers still, right? It's occupation often happens just before a weekend, including bank holiday weekends, right? Now, this appears planned because they know there's a slow response for an LBH. Why is this? And then there are dedicated bailiff companies who will deal with travellers quickly upon occupation. Would these companies not be cheaper and more effective in the long run? I mean, it's great expense. You've done Bedfont Green, the stones. That's cost tens of thousands of pounds. It looks actually quite nice. But, you know, prevention.
Thank you, Mark. Can I ask, Elliot, would you like to just briefly respond on that point?
Yep. So there is a kind of a partnership approach that is taken to tackling these issues. It is a kind of alongside the police. Sometimes, if the council isn't able to take the swift action, the police do, and they can get the notices served within 24 hours. It does sometimes take a little bit longer for the council to do that. We haven't gone down the route of private organisations yet because we feel like we would like to tackle this ourselves with the police, and I suppose build on the protocols that we've got in place. We're also working alongside our neighbouring boroughs. You know, the sort of the situation doesn't always recognise borough boundaries, so we do want to make sure that we have a consistent approach with our neighbouring boroughs, Ealing and Hillingdon, obviously, and the police are very keen to get that in place as well, because obviously the BCU covers our neighbouring boroughs. So I think we know this is a hot topic. We know it's going to become more prevalent in the summer months, which it always does. You know, it's not a surprise that it's come up at the forum this evening, but I would like to just reassure residents and sort of ward councillors, as I'm sure you're aware, that the council do take this very seriously, and it's, you know, the front of our minds.
Thank you, Elliot. Yeah, that point is noted, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for your. Looking for hands around the room. Some more hands. There's a lady here with a mask in the second row with a little woolly hat on who's waving at me. Could you give us your name, please, my love, and where you're from?
Oh, sorry. Okay, my name's... Are you on? No, not. Is it on? Okay, my name is Lorna Porter. I live in Owen House, and I just wanted to know, why is it the council has taken away our car park, and we have got nowhere to park now? I've lost my car. I was in hospital. The car's been gone away. I haven't got a car now. I've had a stroke in July, so it's okay, I thought. This is why I would like to know what is going to be done about us as residents having a car to park, and some of us are disabled. There's nowhere to park now.
Thank you, Lola. Did you say you live in Owen House,
yes,
off Bedfont Lane?
Yes, that's right.
Now, I regularly visit there for Age UK. I'm aware people park on the just inside and round the bend there, but you're saying the actual car parking space...
It's been taken.
The small little car park that was there.
Yes.
Okay. Do any of our Feltham North colleagues know anything about that? Because it's not something that I'm currently aware of, but I'll certainly follow that up, because there would be a reason for it. I know there was some landscaping going on. and some stuff in the garden there. But that is something that we can get back to you on. Can you give us your contact details before you go this evening, please? Okay, then we'll follow that. We'll follow that up this evening if you give us your details. Okay, thank you, Lola. I have a question. The lady at the front.
Hi, my name is Katie, and I live in Rochester Avenue. First, I would like to reiterate what you said earlier, that Feltham has got a worse reputation than it actually deserves. But I also would like to say that and I would like to ask why the council keep giving out licenses for betting shops and pawn shops that downgrade any high street, really. There is another one opening up near Costa, I understand. And the other thing I would like to ask is the high street, which I think so much money has been spent on the high street, but if instead of putting cement and parking places, we put some more green and trees, then maybe it is even better than it is at the moment. Feltham.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Katie. As members, we did oppose Mercure Slots coming to the Santander building. Quite vehemently, we opposed it in planning. We missed the licensing deadline because we weren't made aware of it. We should have spotted it, but we didn't. We were under the impression that it was going to be blocked. That's the impression we got from the planning department. We put up a tremendous fight, and some residents who might be here tonight actually spoke at that planning meeting. Unfortunately, on appeal, they got it. That is not raising the bar, the retail bar in Feltham. We want, I'd like to see Primark here. I'd like to see a better sit-down restaurant. I'd like to see better shops. And the meetings I have with the town centre manager, Samantha Bond-Arnold, are always on these topics. And also, of course, youth facilities in the hub. Maybe a new market in the town centre there like we used to have. So those things are absolutely right, as is the greening, as is the money that we're spending on Feltham Green and the parks, and in Grosvenor Park down at the back of you there. So it's never a simple, it's never a straightforward journey to those sort of things, because they look like two sides of opposing positions, but they're not the two sides of the same coin, and we can do it, and we will do it. So, but thank you for raising that with us, Katie, and I appreciate it, and you coming tonight. I see someone at the back. I see a hand. I'm going to bounce around the room. Well, not literally. That might be a bit shocking for people.
Hi everyone. Simran Johal, and I live on Durham Road, and it's really nice to see so many people here. I was here last year, and there were maybe 5 members of public. So what I really want to do is advocate for more cycling infrastructure in Feltham. The current infrastructure is really patchy. I'm a cyclist as well as someone who drives a car and walks, and I actually want to talk about Harlington Road East Bridge.
Yeah, could you get to the question, my darling? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah,
we're trying to get in before quarter past.
Okay, I'm getting to the question. So a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, I saw a near collision with a cyclist and a car, and basically the cyclist was trying to get onto the cycle path on the bridge, but there's no correct access. The only access is through this small pedestrian crossing, which is inadequate, and basically that's what caused the near crash, was when the cyclist got too close to the car. So it's really quite a dangerous type of area, and I really want to see toucan crossings and better cycle infrastructure connectivity.
Thank you for that question. That is a TfL red route, I believe, coming down Harlington Road East. So it would involve liaising with them. I've walked across it myself. Yeah, but it is something that the council can do with TfL to push for the sort of provision you're talking. Now, in terms of overall cycle provision, I think this council has actually done rather well. It's right across the borough. Some people don't like bikes. Some people don't like the C9 cycle route coming through Chiswick. Part of our local plan and the redevelopment of Feltham Town Centre was to provide cycle lanes. to get us all the way down to the Ashford Road and out of Feltham into Surrey, and also sort of routes up to the airport, the River Crane Walk and the cycle routes as well. So again, as I was saying to Katie, it's like two sides of the same coin, but we'll certainly take that on board. Again, if you give us your details.
Potholes affect cyclists even more than cars, I'd say, because the potholes often tend to be where the cyclists drive. So that's a big thing as well. Fix the potholes, not just for the cars.
We have a pothole pledge programme. Currently, your ward councillors, next Friday, the 22nd of March, you're all here tonight. You live in Bedfont Ward, Feltham North Ward, Feltham West Ward. We have done our own explorations, but over the next 7 days, if you have your particularly bad examples of potholes and you want to get into the pledge, then please email your members with an explanation and we can add that into the list. We can't do everything. We can, yes, thank you, Julia. But we will do our best to include and to gauge what is the best. So please remember to do that. Next Friday is the cut-off for the pothole pledge. That's an additional sum of money over and above the highways contract that we are putting into this problem. I see a lady over here who's very surreptitiously showing her hand. There's the lady. If you could raise your hand again. Tell us your name, my love, and where you're from, and then your question.
Hi, my name is Kasia. I'm here with my family. And I don't know if this is a good question, but again, I want to advocate for the disabled teenagers. My son is disabled autistic child who is attending the Marjorie Kinnon School. So soon he will be in provision to the college. So obviously, my worry is that it's not enough places for the teenage children, disabled teenage children with severe autism, for example, like my son. So what I want to pledge for is the little field near the Marjorie Kinnon School. It's like field of grass. And possibly maybe council can build the college there, suitable for the severe autistic and disabled children.
Well, I know I've got the lead member here and our director of Children Services, Stephen, who's sat in the front. Would either of you like to come in on that and just give us a little bit of perspective? Because we have a pretty good record, I know, but we need to be in the real world. Stephen Forbes, folks, he's our Director of Children's Services, and we'll be hearing from him shortly. Thanks, Stephen.
Your question about can the council build a college, the simple answer to that is no. Without going into long details, government guidance and rules at the present time prevent local authorities from building new schools and colleges. New schools and colleges have to be built by the independent sector. So we can't build a school or a college. It's as simple as that. In terms of plenty places, all I can say to you is there's a point in every year that my staff and schools have to agree where the child is going next, so from nursery to primary, primary to secondary, secondary to tertiary education, college or university. For children with special educational needs, that's at the end of this month. And this year, for the 259 children who are transferring, we have managed to find a place for every single one of those Hounslow children, bar 5, in this borough. So there are sufficient places. The 5 are going outside the borough because their needs are so specialist that we can't provide for it in the local schools. And that's much improved and much different from what we did 4 or 5 years ago. So things are getting better, but I understand your worry because it's always a stressful time for parents, always a stressful time.
They cannot fight for themselves.
Absolutely.
Like my son is 14, he's even not saying mama. So I need to fight for him. That's why, yeah, Marjorie Kinnon is a very good school. I appreciate that.
Okay, my love, yeah, maybe you could discuss this with Stephen just at the end rather than have a personal discussion. Okay, I've got time for 2 more. I know this lady in the front had it up earlier. If you'd like to give us your name, where you're from, and your question. Here comes Thomas with the mic.
Hello. My name's Glenda. I live at Nursery Close, just round the back. I just want to know what's happening with the parking in this area. Again, like everybody else said, there is no parking facilities. The council have now just taken away our car park because they're going to build another 5-storey block of flats. They've demolished another lot of houses because they're going to build another lot of flats. We've got 2 blocks of flats that have been built that are currently empty. And I thought there was a housing crisis that's not being filled. What are they going to replace us with for parking? Because where they've built the flats and people have moved in, they're now parking around our road, so we don't have access to parking. So they've taken away 1 car park and every little area that they've taken. There is no parking facilities. So they're building all these houses. There's not the infrastructure at all to accommodate it all. I want to know what they're going to do with the parking.
Again, when these town centre developments are made, they tend to be made car-free because they're close to public transport and trains and things like that, but there are, of course, private cars. We know up Bedfont Lane on Waterloo Estate and Westmacott, which don't currently have CPZs, which is the other alternative, that there is an overspill from people who come to the station who don't live in Feltham, because Feltham is in Greater London, it's in Zone 6. So it's cheaper travel into town. So it is somewhere between a CPZ, it is somewhere between using those facilities that already exist. I've had more than one conversation with the town centre management about why the multi-storey car park in the centre of Feltham is permanently 50% empty and why we can't find some sort of an arrangement. No, they have their own rules because they operate that on behalf of Aviva. So your point is right. I think in this day and age, the route is possibly controlled parking zones to protect your spaces. But people coming there, yes, some of them will have vehicles, but they know they are not to park in those areas where it's already designated. But there is that overspill. It is something that we continually deal with in council. It's one of the hot potatoes. But the point is well made. I will continue to make that point with the people that operate the car parks here in Feltham, because there has to be a middle way somewhere without saying, let's just go back to everyone having a car, you know. Yeah. Correct. Everyone should be treated with respect, and we should work together to find those answers. Okay, thank you, my love. I am going to only take one more, and the lady who's sitting directly opposite me, actually, right at the back of the room, the lady with the glasses with her hand raised, I'm going to take you. And Thomas has the microphone. Again, if you could give us your name, where you live in the town, and your question.
My name's Susan, and I live in Queen's Road, so Old Feltham area. I want to know what you're going to do about the pavements, specifically outside what was the old Magistrates' Court, also down the High Street. It seems to have all been marked out for attention, but we had a walkabout just before Christmas. No, end of summer, wasn't it? And the councillors came out and said, oh yes, we'll look at this outside the Magistrates' Court, or what is now flats. And they said they were going to do something about it, and then we got an email to say, actually, we don't think there's anything wrong. Now, I don't know if anybody's walked down the Hamworth Road recently, outside the Magistrates' Court. Is it going to take an accident where somebody actually falls and breaks limbs before the council stand up and say, yes, we need to do something about this? And outside the gym, what's now a gym, on the High Street, that's all. The paving slabs are completely higgledy-piggledy. You can't even walk on them without them moving.
Thank you for that. Firstly, when you're talking about Hanworth Road, Magistrates' Court, that's actually in Hanworth Park Ward, which is no longer part of this forum. Yeah. But you're more than welcome, and you bring that question. That is something those ward councillors will take up and should have taken up. Hounslow highways have strict criteria, which I must confess I find baffling at times, having been in Lower Feltham down on Parkfield Crescent, which is not in my ward, but I know a resident that lives there and looked at the pavements and the roads there, and you wonder exactly what you need to do in order to qualify. They have their stringent guidelines, they have a contract which they speak to. Again, we have a pledge. We have extra monies, I believe, Lily, don't we, as well for pavements coming into this programme, where, again, residents need to raise this, because where we have extra monies, that gives us a bit more wriggle room. So I think that is where it should be raised. You mentioned the High Street. I'm always walking up and down the High Street, but we did have a close look at this a couple of weeks ago, and where the tree roots are coming up, down at Pets at Home and down there, down towards the Rochester estate, we made some quite detailed notes, and it's reaching the point where something has to be done. You know, the parade of shops near Tesco as well, Feltham Wines. There's things there that are coming to the end of their shelf life, and these are the things that we will... Well, that's... No, I'm not going to cut the trees, but we're saying you've got to do something about the pavements, Joe. You've got to do something about the tarmac. So yes, that is in hand, but please go to your members. Please remind them of the pavement pledge so we can put extra pressure on highways, because it is quite shocking. Sorry, I didn't hear that last bit.
Would it not be better for all the wards to actually get together as a whole and talk about it as a council?
As members we do, and as members we will.
Okay.
And then with your support as residents, we can put extra pressure on the Highways Department to focus on that.
It's been 2 years now since we raised this.
Right, okay. Well, I'll remind councillors Gurung and Farah to actually deal with that.
Well,
okay.
We've raised that several times with Councillor Gurung. Thank you.
Thank you. I do apologise, but Councillor Lily Bath was waving at me to my right. She has something just to add.
Yeah, I'm probably going to repeat what you said, really, Chair. But one of the reasons that we actually invested some money in the pavement pledge is that we did get, obviously, complaints from people who were frustrated where some of the pavements didn't actually meet the criteria. So I think, as the Chair has said, it's quite important if you do actually work with your ward sort of councillors and put forward proposals and suggestions, and what will happen is, doesn't necessarily mean it will get done, but that the councillors will compile a list of all of those roads or pavements that have actually been brought to their attention, and then we'll come to some kind of priority in terms of allocating money. So it's important that you do let them know, but that is specifically why we invested quite a lot of money in that, so that we can actually sort of focus on some of these areas that don't generally meet the criteria. Thank you.
Just as Lily finished, you turned back round then, but I know you were writing your details down. Okay, that will all be in the minutes, don't worry. Okay, we've gone past time, I'm not taking any more questions on the open forum, because we've had 35. Okay, Joe, go on then, I'll let you in. Viva! Okay, Joe, what is your question?
Just to tell you, I have lived long enough to remember better times. Now, I remember any time I approach council, send me the email. People in my area of personality do not do that technology, and you can't find anybody to talk to. I wanted to ask, that was only my first question, which what does make financial idea that council should take contractors outside of the borough? When I have rang to report something, guy in Sheffield answered. Now, he has to take another contractor to do the job, and that contractor takes another. So it's really bureaucracy going around, giving everybody I can't say pen-pushing job, button-pressing job. Where is the saving there? Why are we doing it? We have unemployed people here, for heaven's sake. Okay, I have more questions, but I'll ask you personally.
Yeah, the way business works nowadays on projects is through contractors and subcontractors and subcontractors. I think that's quite historical. I know the council, when it comes to the council's projects, in recent times, in the last 2 or 3 years, have increasingly taken things in-house and done it ourselves and not put it out to private tender, but actually to try and get it done through our chosen routes. And it turns out that we can actually do it at least as cheaply, but also with a heart behind it, which means it's done properly. That is our position, I think, as a local authority. That's just the way we are. It's changed from compulsory competitive tendering maybe a decade ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But I think people are more relaxed on that now. It's not just Labour councils. Conservative councils will look at that as well. They have to, because of the environment we live in, the economic environment. But you're absolutely right. It is frustrating. And I think we've proven in Hounslow that we can actually do things rather well on our own budgets and actually taking people's views and representing those as members through the officers to get the job done better. But thank you, Joe. I'm going to leave it there because we have to move on. I'm sorry, my love. If you have a question, can we take it at the end of the meeting? Would you mind? Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for your contribution. That's most welcome. And it's nice to see such a load of people here tonight who wanted to take part in that. Item 5 on the agenda is Stephen Forbes, who's going to talk to us. Stephen is here. I don't know whether... Do we have that microphone for Stephen? Or are you using your lapel? I can't remember. Okay, so Stephen's going to... And I believe we have a few slides as a backdrop. Now, folks... We know that youth provision at our end of the borough, young people in the Feltham, Bedfont and Hanworth area, has been a long-term commitment. We know that at this end we don't have the aspirations that we should have. We know we don't have the results we do. The data proves it. But it doesn't mean that there isn't something that we can do about it. We all know about the Reach Academy. We know about their efforts made here, trying to get a youth zone. We need a game changer. We need, not just from that angle, but across the piece, better provision for young people, be it in education, training, things to give them confidence, things to give them responsibility. And what Stephen's going to outline for us now is this wonderful programme, the Children and Young People's Plan Youth Offer. Stephen, we're very grateful to have you. Please give us your talk. Thank you. And members, if there are questions, could you please note them during the talk? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll apologise. I prefer to stand because I've been sitting down all day, so it's an absolute pleasure to stand up for 10 or 15 minutes. And you know what I look like, so you won't worry about seeing me from the back end. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for giving me some time tonight. So as Councillor Mitchell said, I'm here basically to talk about two things. Our new Children and Young People's Plan, and that's going to be a really condensed run through that because there's a lot of detail there. And as Councillor Mitchell said, the second bit is our youth offer review, just to update you where we're at with that. So, first of all, I'll introduce who I am properly because I realised I started speaking earlier on and didn't say who I am. So I'm Stephen Forbes. I'm Executive Director for Children's and Adult Services, and Councillor Bath is my lead member. I'm responsible for the services that I have in the department, and I'm responsible for all of adult social care, so care of the elderly, hospital discharge, care of people with learning disabilities, mental health, a few other bits and pieces, adult safeguarding, into children's safeguarding, child protection, looked after children, care leavers, sport to schools, local authority responsibilities for education, adult learning, and a few other bits and pieces that are all in the department. So quite a wide range. Many of those things are what we call statutory services, things we have to do, mainly around about child protection and social care. So I cover all of that, but I am a member of the Council's corporate management team. So I report to Niall Bolger, who's the Chief Executive, and there are 5 of us as a corporate leadership team. The Children and Young People's Plan, where did that come from? So about 2021, just at the end of the pandemic, our previous Children and Young People's Plan had come to an end. And that was a plan very much focused on what my department does for children and young people, and not, in essence, a wider need for children and young people in the borough. So we made a decision that when we refreshed that plan, it wouldn't be my department's plan, it would be a plan for the whole of the council and everything we do. So for colleagues over in housing and regeneration and leisure and parks, the plan would look to all of those things, not just what we do for a fairly small number of children who we look after or we protect, or our responsibilities for education. So we also wanted to build that on, well, children aren't separate from the rest of us. They're part of our society, and in the past we've tended to create plans that have been very focused on just children, and forgetting that actually the children that we're talking about will be the adults who live in the community in 15 or 20 years. So if we're planning school expansion with the independent sector, or what the education need is, or what housing we need, we're actually talking about what 14-year-olds will be using in 10 or 15 years' time. So one of the things we did was design this plan around the corporate plan, which in essence is the council's ambition over the next 4 years to deliver on a huge range of things, from environment, parks, leisure, you name it, everything. So we've dovetailed it into the corporate plan. We also wanted to make a plan that was informed by what children and young people told us. So we set an ambitious target, which I have to say we haven't yet met, and I'll say how we're going to meet that we wanted to touch, in some respects, the views of 1 in 10 of the children in the borough. So we wanted to be able to say that our plan was based on 1 in 10 of the young people in the borough telling us what they thought was important. Now that set a target of having to engage with 5,000 young people between the age of 0 to 25. We've achieved, in a year, talking to 2,500 young people. The group we haven't been able to get real traction with are the 18 to 25-year-olds. And that might be something to do with the fact that we don't have an awful lot of linkage to that group. So we need to do something about that. But the plan, you see there, and first thing you're going to say is text too small. I'm only putting it up there to show you that it exists. What we'll make sure at the end of today, in the minutes that come out, is you have the links to where that is in the council's website, and you can pick it up from there. So we've created a plan based on what about 2,500 young people have told us. And we asked them, basically, tell us what it's like to live in Hounslow, what your ambitions and your desires and your wants and needs are, and that will inform how we create the plan based on what the whole council does. So, not unsurprisingly for us, what young people said is, travelling around the borough, not as easy as it could be. Sometimes it doesn't feel safe to walk around the borough and be a young person. There's a perceived concern about violent crime, so particularly knife crime for young people. Education, which is an interesting one for me, because although I don't have responsibility for what happens in the schools, all but one of our schools in the borough are rated either good or outstanding from Ofsted, but what our young people said is that the quality of education needs to be better. So that's an interesting one, that, for us, about how we then have that conversation with school leaders about what does that actually mean. What that really meant when we looked at it is that the academic stuff seems to be fine, but a lot of the stuff that young people would want about life skills and how to go into adult life isn't part of the curriculum. And in all fairness, I'd say to them they're absolutely right, because we've had a school system driven by Ofsted as a regulator, which is very much focused on progression and attainment of academics, and not about what Ofsted is now talking about is what they call a richer curriculum, that it should be preparing young people for their adult life. Other things that young people told us was this health and well-being. So we have some real challenges in Hounslow about the health and well-being of our young people. We have about 23% of our young children who present at primary or nursery who are not, as we determine in government language, ready for school. That means that they aren't toilet trained, they can't actually sit and pay attention, they can't take their own coat on and off, very simple stuff like that. And what that means is that a year is spent with those children preparing them to learn rather than in the first year actually learning. So we've got to get to grips with that. What our older children are saying is their mental well-being is an issue for them, and actually access to services in terms of counselling, advice, is pretty limited, and it's a really high bar to get access to it, so they want a bit more improvement in that. And general physical health. We have close to a pandemic on obesity in our children. There are about 28% of our children start primary school technically, clinically obese, and by the time they get to secondary, that number has almost doubled. And that brings huge issues about your health as a fully grown adult. There's a lot of scientific evidence suggests if you are obese when you're a child, it'll bring things like type 2 diabetes, heart conditions, lung conditions, and a whole load of other conditions into your poor health. So the other thing young people said is that being outside. some of the parks, their view is, need to be a bit safer. So again, we didn't quite understand because they weren't clear about what they meant, so we'll have to go and find out from them what they mean by safer. Okay, I'll come to that question later.
My Rosie had type 1 diabetes.
Yeah. So that was broadly what young people told us. We then took some of the other feedback they gave us and said, okay, all the things we do in the council, from education to parks to leisure, what were the other things that young people told us? And when you see this plan on the website and you have time to look at it, what you'll see in each of 6 key themes, which is thriving, which is good health, education, safer, which is community safety, you'll see what the departments across the council have said they're going to do. So it's not me and my department that are delivering all of this plan, and that's the big shift. It's the whole council that are behind delivering the Children and Young People's Plan. Where we're at this point is we've what's called soft launched this, i.e. it's there, but we haven't made a big show and tell. We are going to do that fairly soon, and we're going to then, at the same time, internally, so the chief officers, which are the executive directors and the directors, will have to put a plan into place to deliver all the actions we've said we were going to do in there. And the other bit, back to what I said about how many young people we engaged with, because we only met half the young people we wanted to engage with, is that part of the plan this year is to get out there and find out more from young people, so this plan can get amended as we go along. And this plan doesn't have a time date on it. It's not, we normally do plans from 2024 to 2026 or 2024 to 2028. There's no time plan limit on this. Our intention is that as we get more input from children and young people, if what they're saying isn't in the plan, we'll stick it in the plan and we'll make the delivery plan work. If they say actually what's in the plan isn't important anymore, we'll take it out of the plan. So every year we will refresh it based on what hopefully at least another 1,000 young people have told us in the next 9 months. So what we've agreed is that each of the 6 key theme areas, a number of directors in the council will take responsibility for delivering that and getting the next round of engagement with young people. I've opted, with my Director of Lifelong Learning Skills and Employment, to do the employment bit, surprisingly, because it's our business. And what we've been doing through the Youth Skills Employment Guarantee, which was a commitment that Cabinet came in with, is in essence, we've agreed with a huge number of employers and educators in the borough to try to do what we call the Hounslow Job Fair. Have one big job fair in Hounslow that actually puts all the employment and training opportunities for young people in one place and not during the school term, because that's when the current job fairs work, but actually in the school holidays so we can get a better engagement. And hopefully, the last jobs fair we did in Hounslow House a couple of months ago, around about Apprenticeship Week, we had 600 young people come in the doors to that job fair. So if we do one, and hopefully we'll be doing it, I think, at a football ground somewhere in the borough. You'll know there is a famous football ground in the borough. Hopefully we'll get a couple of 1,000 young people coming into that to see what's available and what pathways to skills and employment and training they can get. But we'll also get a chance to say to every single one of them what's important for you. So what I'm expecting the other directors to do is pick up on the other 5 themes and decide how they're going to engage with young people over the next year and what they're going to deliver in the plan. So it's a fairly ambitious process in terms of hearing what young people have got to say to us. So as I say, I'm going to I could go on forever and a day, and I could probably have you here till midnight, and I'm not going to do that. But there's a lot of detail in the plan. As I say, we'll make sure that when you get the minutes of this meeting, that the link to it on the website is there. And I encourage, if you know young people, which you probably do, because you've probably got sons and daughters, and nieces and nephews, or grandchildren, encourage them, if they see us coming out saying we want to know what it is, what life is like for you in the borough, or what you would like, that they engage in those things that we'll publicise about engaging with young people, because it's really important that actually we understand what young people want us to do. You know, as a chief officer, I have responsibility to deliver services, and I can sit at my desk in Hounslow House and think what is the right thing for young people, but you know, I'm nearly at retirement age. It's a long time ago since I was young, and the world has changed an awful lot. So what I wanted when I was a young person is probably vastly different from what the average 14-year-old wants or experiences now. I barely, you know, my father had an 8-track cassette, who remembers them, and I was very proud when I got a microcassette player that had a backward and a rewind function. Now youngsters like me have got 2 or 3 mobile phones that do a mass of things and give them access to a big wide world, which is incredibly exciting and incredibly scary at the same time. So the world has just moved on since I was a youngster, so I can't make judgments based on what I know, because it's out of date. So we need to know what they know. Things we are going to do, as I said, the job fair's one. We're also working with University of West London to look at the higher education offer in Feltham and the west of the borough. So we're looking at whether or not, with the University of West London, that we have to develop a curriculum offer for this end of the borough that gives the young people here a real opportunity to get a grasp of what opportunities there are. One of the most frustrating things, and probably Councillor Bath would share this frustration with me, is that our children in this borough, again I'll use this technical words, attain and progress equal to the national averages. What our young people in our borough don't seem to manage to get to is securing high-paid, good quality jobs. Something doesn't quite work between getting your GCSEs and your A-levels and securing a good job. So we are the second lowest wage economy in London other than Barking and Dagenham. And yet, in this borough, we have a significant number of high-paid, technical, creative jobs. So something isn't quite working, and we need to do something about that for our young people, because the research we've done suggests that there's what's called your real job. So we all know when we were young that you did I had 5 sort of interim jobs when I left school because I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I did this job for about 9 months, and then I went to that job, and eventually I landed the job I wanted to do. And it took me 4 years to get there. And that's about the average in the UK. Our children take about 1.5 years longer to get there, and we don't understand why. So we need to do something to accelerate that, because that 1.5 years is disadvantage. It's disadvantage in career progression, and it's disadvantage about how much money you have in your pocket. And yet our children aren't stupid, they aren't daft, and it's not that they don't attain and progress. They do. But something's not quite working. One of the things they do tell us is it's a real minefield out there to get access to information. If you go onto Google and say skills, you'll get everything from the US to France to Scotland to England to this organisation, this company. So one of the things we're doing in the Youth Skills Guarantee as part of Children and Young People's Plan is trying to bring that information to one place that people can access to get the right advice. And also encourage people, particularly, he says, because I've got a vested interest in the public sector, to come out and talk to our young people about the career opportunities. If I said to this room just now, what jobs exist in the NHS? I can guarantee you the first 4 or 5 things that would come out your mouths would be doctor, nurse, maybe OT, maybe a physio. You wouldn't talk about logistics, IT, facilities, management, data control. And yet all those jobs are in the NHS, and all those jobs have salaries equivalent to nurses, physios, and junior doctors. So we've got to get our young people knowing those jobs exist. And I'm responsible for all the social workers in the council. We cannot recruit social workers locally. Like every other London authority, we cannot recruit them. Social work salary is somewhere between £28,000 to £40,000 a year, depending on where you sit on your progression. That's a pretty good wage in this world. It's above the national average wage, and yet we can't recruit people. And more frighteningly, we cannot get people to come into the profession. And I do not believe in the 68,000 young people that we have in the borough, there are maybe 2 or 3 who look at me, well, maybe don't look at me, but look at me as an emblem of the profession and say, that's the job I want to do. I need to come out to schools, and I need to talk to young people about the opportunities that exist. We have 37,000 vacant social work posts in the UK at the present time, and we don't have people coming into profession. And I can't believe there are young people in Hounslow who wouldn't see that as a potential. But do they know how to get there? Probably not. So people like me need to come out, as in doctors need to come out and talk to young people, nurses need to come out and talk to young people, engineers need to come out and talk to young people, to enable young people to see the route into the careers, because they're not all straight line. So that's some of the stuff we're doing here. On health and well-being, a lot of stuff with the NHS. So we have with the NHS locally won't try even describe it, a partnership structure where we're looking at what young people's health needs have. And two big issues for us is dentistry for young people. Shockingly, 1 in 5 of A&E attendances for young children is to do with dental treatment. That's just not good enough. So we need to do something locally with NHS to try and resolve that. Because if you're not got good teeth, you're unlikely to be eating well, you're also unlikely to be concentrating at school if you've got tooth pain, and it has knock-on effects across the board. So lots of work to be done. So happy to ask any questions about any of that stuff. Very briefly, because Councillor Mitchell's probably going to throw something at me from behind. On the youth offer, so we are at the moment in terms of doing what we've called the youth offer review. What that basically means in layperson's term is what's available out there for young people to do. So we've done a huge bit of data exercise of gathering what's available, mapping all the stuff that's out there, looking at what's available, when it's available, who it's targeted at, etc., etc., etc. And at this moment, crunching all that data and all that information, what we seem to have centred on is actually for the 0 to 5s and the 5 to 13, 14-year-olds, there's not a bad offer. It's not perfect, but there's not a bad offer. But there is a definitive gap for the 13, 14 to 15-year-olds. The offers out there in the community, in clubs and whatever, is pretty thin and patchy in places. So now what we want to do is say, okay, so how do we as a council and the voluntary sector and the private sector and everybody else use the resources they've got to try and target that and try and improve that offer to those 14 to 16, 17-year-olds. Because that might address some of those issues about feeling like there's nothing to do, being distracted in terms of antisocial behaviour, doing things that, you know, running up and down high streets because there's nothing much better to do. All that kind of stuff. We need to start targeting that. So the youth offer is now kind of past the data bit. We'll now be coming out to areas like Feltham and in the east of the borough, because there are some pockets of real need there as well, to have a conversation with, again, young people and families locally about, so what would work here? Because the simple solution is there is not one thing will solve all the need and all the expectations across the borough as a whole. The groups are very differently. We've got certain groups who have nothing, don't seem to be engaging in anything, so we need to target at them as well. So I will be probably, or me, someone else through councillors, coming back to have that conversation with people locally as well. And at that point, Councillor Mitchell, I will stop.
Stephen Forbes, folks. To tie things up is astonishing. I often say it to him, and he just brushes it aside. I've got one or two questions, but I'm aware of time. I'd like to take one or two from the floor. Are there any questions from the floor to Stephen about anything that he's said on that myriad of positivity and potential? Any questions? I'll take the lady in the front here.
All I was going to say is youth clubs, they seem to have disappeared. What's happened to them? Because, you know, okay, you're saying children today, but myself and my children, it played a big deal when they were growing up, you know, because they learn skills from, you know, from doing something different and being with other children. So that's it, really.
I can only talk from my experience. I can't talk from what happened in Hounslow before. But over my years, you know, in my previous council, we had about £1 million invested in targeted youth clubs for children that were at risk. That gave me about 40 staff over 6 locations, and that was under threat because of our financing position in the council, based on the reduction in our government grant. What's happened across the whole of the country is a reduction in government grant where we've had to target it on the child protection activity. We've had to shift that money. So most of the youth clubs now are delivered through voluntary sector organisations or independent organisations, very little from councils. I have about £150,000 worth of a youth offer budget, which we currently contract with Brentford Community Trust to provide some support, but it's a drop in the ocean of the overall need. So part of the youth offer review is to say, what do we know is the need, and how do we all, because it can't all come from the council, because there isn't money coming to the council from government to do it, how can we all collectively try our best to fill some of that gap? But it's a tough world, and youth clubs were really good because they prevented some of the stuff that my social work teams have to deal with. Yeah.
Another hand, I'll take one more on this. There's a lady there in the middle, I can't see her face. Could you give your name and where you're from?
Yeah, my name is Aisha, I live in Hounslow. As a young person, I would think maybe reaching out to schools with younger people that students like me could relate to. I think that would work really well. And also you were talking about how like making parks safer and areas safer. Many people I know are afraid to step out of their house and like into areas like Hounslow because of many stabbings and antisocial behaviour. So what way could you make it safer for younger people, and what do you have planned?
Two things there, really quickly. On the first bit, and what I forgot to say is part of the engagement with the 2,000 young people was predominantly through the schools and some of the clubs that young people go to, and we actually trained up 25 young researchers, so they were young people aged about 14 to 18, to go out and do that research. And that was a really good exercise, because actually young people talk to young people better than they talk to old folks like me. So it was a really good way of getting the feedback, was 14 and 15-year-olds going out and saying to young people what works. We developed a script with them, but they went out and did it. So it was really good, and I'd want to do that again this year and next year. And it's a good learning experience for those 20 young people. They really enjoyed it. In terms of safer, interestingly in Hounslow, we are, within the Metropolitan Police area, there is what's known as the gangs matrix. So when a local area has sufficient number of gangs engaged, it becomes identified as a gangs borough. So you have to have a number of active gangs, and predominantly gangs feed on young people. In the main, young people are the fodder for gangs. Now, we're not a gangs borough. We had a bit of a blip of activity about a year and a half ago, which thankfully with Elliot and colleagues and Phil, who's my head of service for adolescent services, sorry for pointing you out, Phil, but Elliot's team and the police, actually we did some really active disruption of the gang that had appeared, and they seem to have, I'm looking to Phil to nod, disappeared and are not prevalent anymore. That doesn't mean there aren't a few groups or whatever on the side. But actually, one of the interesting things in Hounslow is that we have a higher perception of the fear of crime than the level of crime that exists, and particularly with young people. So whether or not it's storytelling or it's people having that conversation that engenders a higher level of fear than the actual level of crime, doesn't mean there isn't crime happening that affects young people, but sometimes I think the conversation about it feeds the fear of it, if you know what I mean.
Also, you know how in schools there's no way to really stop people bringing in knives, things like this. In my school, there are a lot of people who bring knives and like weapons and like this sort of stuff. So what way could you stop this from happening? Because most people do feel like really unsafe when someone has a knife on them or something.
Stephen, I know that's something the police are working on in all our schools.
So we do have a
I'll just do that one.
Safer Schools police team. So they work with the schools to ensure that the schools are a safe environment. Schools can bring in knife arches over a period of time to discourage. And actually, the majority, if not all of the schools in Hounslow have a really strong no-knife approach to policy. So you are basically on the edge of exclusion if you're bringing a knife to school. The flip side of that is we don't want children who are thinking that they need to take a knife to school to be excluded from school, because that then leaves them open to being dragged into stuff when they're not in school. But most of the schools here are really vigilant. They are quite strong on no knives in school. Doesn't mean they search all children coming in. You can't do that. You can't search 1,000 teenagers coming into school in the morning time. But we will, and they will, use knife arches and blade detectors on a recurring basis, just to emphasise that it isn't acceptable. But there needs to be a bit within the school community. Peer pressure works, both for good and bad. So it's not acceptable to have a knife, needs to be the mantra. And that needs to be the mantra within the school community with parents and children and teaching staff and the governing body and the police presence.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. If you've got another question for Stephen, can I ask that you ask it at the end, because we're a bit pushed for time. Can I call Councillor Madeira Sim, please?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Stephen, for your lovely presentation you gave. I'm going to take you a little back to when we had the pandemic. And as we know, COVID affected some children more than it did others. So could you please explain how will we ensure that those who were left behind and who need the extra support, and how we're going to support those to ensure that they do not fall through the cracks?
Yeah. So there was a significant impact in the pandemic about children not being in school and not in a learning environment. Schools were open for what were considered to be vulnerable children. So all children with a special educational need, all children with a social worker were able to go to school throughout the pandemic. But for the vast majority of children being out of school for nearly a year, if you look at all the time the schools were locked down, and particularly for primary, there was an awful lot of emphasis on the children facing exams, and I get that, and that was an issue for them. What there wasn't a lot of emphasis on was the impact of not being in school for 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. Because what you learn in school at 5 and 6 and 7 is how to be part of a team, work with other people, learn, and absorb information. And they really struggled. So we have a whole grouping, about 3 years, where actually they are just beginning to recover. The council put in nearly £1 million in 2021 into some targeted schools where we saw significant impact. So where the oral skills of children had rapidly dropped after that year, so children were coming not able to articulate what they wanted to say, where the reading skills had dropped, we targeted intervention with those schools. We allocated them some of that money on the basis that they would focus that. Nationally, the government brought out a national tutoring service to support children who went behind, and I'm trying to find a way to be very neutral about the success of that. It wasn't a roaring success, regrettably. It would have been better if they handed that money to local authorities and school communities rather than trying to manage it through the Department for Education nationally. I don't think it was good value because it didn't impact in the right places. But we still have children who are catching up, and hopefully they will. The biggest impact, which is the most disturbing impact, is the non-attendance of children at school. Since the pandemic, what's called persistence absence, so that's a child who misses more than 1 in 10 of their school days through the year, has rocketed, absolutely rocketed. So on average, we have about 25% of our school children persistently absent from school. They are missing 1 in every 10 days. And that has an immediate impact. Most of that relates to what we saw coming out of the pandemic, was what we would call technically unregulated behaviour. So it's back to simple things like children not being able to participate in being in a classroom, not being able to pay attention, not being able to regulate their own emotions, and that having wide impacts on their education and their ability to learn and the rest of the class. So we have some children where actually we're in a situation where they've got 2-to-1 support because they're unable to regulate their behaviour or to be able to participate because they spent nearly a year when they should have been forming those skills in school to share. Remember everybody when you had to learn to share? You used to cry, all that sort of stuff you do at age 5 and 6. They weren't part of that, so they are struggling with that concept. And that's leading to children just not coming to school. There was a charitable organisation.
Stephen, can I just maybe to bring it to a...
Released a report about 6 weeks ago, which is also backed up with the concern that parents are no longer seeing it as an important thing that children attend school nationally. So we need to do something about those elements because they are quite worrying.
Thank you, Stephen. I've just got a brief question. In terms of the West area, the Feltham area, to put you on the spot, given the needs we have here, and you know the data, what in your opinion, if you could answer it in 2 brief sentences, would be a game changer for us at this end that would really make a difference? You know the lie of the land, you know how people feel about youth zones and things. What, in your opinion, would be a game changer that would enable everything that we want to do here? Very briefly.
So, kind of off the grid, access to free school meals an absolute, without hesitation, for every primary school child. If you're not fed, you're not going to learn. You're not ready to learn, you're not able to learn. So we need to, because of the levels of deprivation and the struggle that families have on this side of the borough, access to free school meals would be an absolute game changer. And that's a government policy that needs to come into play. It's not something the council can do. The mayor has put in money this year, but it needs to be a government change. If you're fed and you're able to have the energy to learn, you will learn. We've got children who probably haven't eaten from one day to another. Yes, absolutely. And the other one would be that bit I said before, which is even then, when our children do progress and attain, sorting out that problem, which is they don't secure the well-paid jobs locally. That bit we really, because if we don't get them into those well-paid jobs, they aren't putting money in their own pocket, which economically makes them much stronger. And there is no reason why children that attain and progress in our borough shouldn't get good paid jobs that exist here, but it's not working, and we need to sort that bit out.
Okay, Stephen. Sorry, Ragwinder now has a question. Ragwinder's coming. Really quickly, Ragwinder.
Thank you, Steve. Like with Heathrow next to us, how we can get good jobs, like not with there's a good job in Heathrow as well. How we can force our youth to approach towards that jobs.
So we're doing a lot of work with Heathrow as an employer about skills and pathways into its jobs, but Heathrow is also in Hillingdon, so we kind of compete with Hillingdon for that. There are plans potentially for a business park related to the good quality technical jobs in Heathrow, so hopefully we'll be able to get our young people sorted out for that in 5 or 10 years. But we've got a huge range of jobs. We've got a huge creative corridor in Hounslow. It runs a Great West corridor. We've got Sky, we had GSK. Again, very few Hounslow people actually secured the jobs in those organisations that were high paid and technical. So we need to do more to get those employers to focus on local children. That's why we're going to do the work with University of West London.
So we need our young people in well-paid jobs, managerial jobs, not just service jobs.
Yeah.
And that's true of adults in this area as well. Can I just ask Councillor Lily Bath, who's the lead member for children, just to wind up on this? Thanks, Lily.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. I've been pestering Stephen for a while to come to our area forum, so thank you for coming, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And I think one of the reasons that we wanted Stephen here is that perhaps not so much tonight, but in the previous area forums, we've had quite a few young people who've asked us lots of questions around what the council is doing for young people. And I think what we really wanted to illustrate is that we do have a plan and how it originated and the fact that it came from listening to young people. So that was number one. But also we've had quite a few, I suppose, discussions at this area forum around youth activities and what we do for young people. And I think you will have heard from what Stephen has said tonight that the actual budget that the council has to spend on youth activities itself is actually really, really tiny because of all of the austerity cuts over the years, which means that you're investing more in statutory services rather than others. But I think also, and one of the big commitments that we have, and it's a real passion of mine, and I think we've said it a few times, but what we really can do to help young people is to try and support them into really good paid employment, because it just isn't right that we have such a big disparity here in the borough. And I think that's something that is a real mission of ours. And it's early days yet. We've got the Youth Support Employment Guarantee, but we do have a real commitment to make sure that we get the right people in the room with us and we create sort of opportunities and pathways, really good paid jobs for people, so young people. And on that note, if anybody wants to have a change of career or wants to be a social worker, get in touch with Stephen. There you go. Don't say I don't help you.
Indeed.
Yeah.
3-year degree course. We've got an apprenticeship route. I'll take anybody up to the age of 55, no hesitation whatsoever.
So, folks, you can see there's a lot going on. It's not a void, it's not a black hole. This is superb work. And I spent some time working with Lily on Cabinet last year. It is first class, this. Everyone has to feed in and encourage young people to do so. We need to do this together. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Forbes, Director of Children's Services. Thank you, Stephen. Okay, moving swiftly on, we come to the last substantive item on the agenda, which is the action plan. I'll give you a brief rundown. The action plan is something that we have at each forum. It's whereby members take ownership of particular issues that are considered important to a local area or a part of their ward. It's not individual casework. I'm going to kick the ball off with Feltham West. Proctor's Close, which is the ongoing issue for Carol over there with the community building. As noted in the previous update, discussions and requests for costing of a gate, which would allow the community centre to have its own allocation of parking. Teams will look to assess the budget for this or consider outside funding where possible. There is also a request for a disabled bay to support the community centre. This is all very positive. A projects manager has been appointed. We're going to issue another update on this in the September forum, not the June forum, because that will give teams more time to actually collate what needs to be done. And I will certainly be speaking to Highways and Housing about this. It's historical. John Cooper kicked this off 15 years ago when he was a councillor, and we're still sitting there somewhat navel-gazing. Okay. I'm now going to ask, Maddie's going to go next for Feltham West, and then Hina will come in after that. So, Maddie, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to be touching on the community safety aspect, particularly on the High Street, as part of our ongoing engagement.
Sorry, can we have a little bit of hush? We're just coming to the end of the meeting. These are important points. I think some members and people in the audience would like to hear what's going on in their wards. If we could have just a little bit of hush, thanks.
Okay. As part of our ongoing engagement with our partners, area-based meetings continue to be held by safety communities and are strongly focused on the High Street area. We keep extending the network of partners, including both governmental and private organisations, housing associations, and managing agents. We are also working closely with Safer Business Hounslow on engaging local businesses, promote the Safer Business Scheme and good practices, and there is regular walk and talk with businesses and the police to seek reports and raise awareness of reporting. Adolescent Services carries on extra outreach on the High Street. The officers are linked with neighbourhood enforcement team and the local youth group so that they can direct young people to the clubs and activities available in the area or provide specialised support if it is needed. Thank you, Chair.
Hina's got something for us.
Thank you, Chair. So lots of work been done to support youth in the area. Most recently, the LBH Youth Outreach Team have set up a music studio in the Hanworth Centre in collaboration with the team and are running the provision for young people known to outreach in the West. We also run a boxing provision on Highfields and are offering support to young people across the Hounslow Borough. The team will also be running pop-up youth clubs and other activities throughout the summer holidays for young people. Perfectly Imperfect and Rise and Thrive continue to hold outreach with the police and community safety on the High Street, supporting to redirect young people, build positive relationships and provide support and information, as well as link working with families and young people. And we have more information on enforcement. The update we have here is enforcement focus on surrounding states, including Highfields, Belvedere, and New Chapel Square, as these three states triangulate around Feltham High Street, as they are aware of the reports of ASB in these areas. Enforcement colleagues remain situated at the housing offices on a regular basis for quick response in the local area. They continue to work alongside the youth teams mentioned above in the states and are also supporting the cause to have floodlights installed at the sports cage just to the front of Belvedere House and have chosen some community champions who reside in the block to control the access to support to the sports cage. We want to support and cohesive relationship with residents and youth teams. Thank you, Chair.
There's a lot of work going on with our partners, the police, the youth service, adolescent services, Safer Community Team, housing associations. It's a hell of a job, but it's working, and town centre management, who I meet regularly in the town centre in Feltham. Thank you, Hina, for that. Councillor Ragwinder Sidhu, would you like to update us on Grove Village up in Bedfont?
Thank you, Chair. After securing our fields from the travellers, thank you to Emily and whole team, Aditya, and you've done an incredible job by improving the greens. So in Grove Village, there's successful engagement with Place of People, and that a site visit with community safety and partners, Lambton Green Spaces, local police enforcement and community development has taken place. The fly tipping has reduced significantly, and Lambton Green Spaces are monitoring the area regularly. And the police has also updated that after their engagement, antisocial behavior comes down significantly. The aim is to get involved with some local groups like Scouts and do some regular fly tippings and regular community work together with local residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ragwinder. Councillor Lily Bath, something on Hatton Road.
Thank you. So you remember we had issues around parking on the pavement on Hatton Road, particularly outside during match days. So we've had the double yellow lines implemented now, but then possibly, we're not sure it's going to be monitored, but that might have displaced some traffic along the road, like as sometimes happens when you do things like that. So we'll go ahead and we'll just monitor that situation, and I think residents will let us know if there's something further that needs to be done. We also did a visit some months back now to Bedfont Sports Club, and we spoke with them at that time about possibly helping or assisting in terms of refurbishing improving the car park in the club. I think that's been put on hold at the moment because it would cost the club quite significant amounts of money, so I think that is on hold at the moment, but we hopefully will be able to revisit that with them. But as far as the club is concerned, I think that's on hold.
Okay, thank you, Lily. Councillor Nagra, some good news on the cricket pitch over on Feltham Parks. We've been after this, haven't we, for some time?
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, Shakil's going to do it.
I'm giving the update on behalf of the Councillor Nagra regarding the cricket pitch. We have now completing the pre-tendered master view design work for the Feltham Park. We have including the cricket pitch. We will be looking at the procedure as the lead consultant late April, early May to lead the arrangement and the consultation, at which point we will consultation of the design work. The funding for the cricket pitch is already secure from the England and the Wales Cricket Board, bearing any pushback on placement from the resident consultation. We will be able to deliver it as soon as possible, ready for the user over the summer month. For the further update for the cricket pitch will be provided in the next area forum in June. Thank you.
Thank you, Shakil. We will have test match cricket in Feltham arenas. Okay, Councillor Kuldeep Tak, you've got a couple for us. Kuldeep, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I got an update for the PASA code. We did provide a short update in last area forum, but now the work at PASA code has been completed. Council has been monitoring its usage, and it's now available for the community and the voluntary sector organizations to hire. Booking can be made via Hall's team at Hounslow. which is halls@hounslow.gov.uk. Sorry? No, the phone number isn't there at the moment, but it's an email ID. You can send your requests to any of the councillors to facilitate, to collaborate with the halls team, or you can directly book with the halls team.
Okay, Kuldeep, anything else there? Anything else?
Yes, there's another update about the highways and roads. It's been marked as complete. I wouldn't say it's complete because it is always an ongoing issue. So some of the potholes on Sparrow Farm Drive have been filled, but there's still some work that needs doing. So we'll continue to monitor the areas which still require work. And as Councillor Mitchell has previously said about the pothole pledge, so we'll be raising this particular road, Sparrow Farm Drive and the drive, which I'm personally aware of the potholes. So I'll be putting that forward. And if you need a support or you want to report something that you are aware of, you can contact the councillors, or you can raise it directly with the Hounslow Highways on Fix My Street. Hounslow Highways has specific requirements for potholes to be filled. It needs to be 75 mm before they can take an action and fill it. So sometimes we feel that there is a big pothole, but it does not fulfill the requirements for Hounslow Highways to take an action on the potholes. So you can report it, they'll go and measure it, and they can come back to us that it does not fulfill the requirements, and we can monitor that pothole and report it again if required.
Thank you, Kuldeep. And the point is, again, next Friday is the deadline, the 22nd of March. Please get in touch with your councillors if you want to make them aware of particular potholes and things in your particular patch. We can't promise anything, but that's the deadline for submission for the extra monies in our pledge. So please, let's all engage with that. Very briefly, Anne, very briefly. Anne, could you hold on so we can get the mic to you? Just one last comment.
Is this on? Yep. I've been speaking to Mr. Hurley about potholes, and he has responded rather well. But I did ask him what we really don't want is potholes fixed. We need resurfacing. And I asked him if there was a plan for that. He did say there was, but not when.
That's noted, Anne. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, and that is obviously with your Hanworth Park colleagues. I'm not aware of any other info. Oh, someone. Oh, sorry, Shaquille, your hand wasn't raised high enough. Yeah, I'm not taking any more public questions, darling. Can we let Councillor Shaquille speak first, please? Then I'll come to you, my love. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted to update regarding the Baber Bridge, which is located to the near petrol station Staines Road. Feasibility work continue to move forward and is now entering in the final stage. Since our last update, further surveys and assessments have been taken place on site, including structure assessments. A meeting with local councillors and stakeholder groups, such as Friend of the Lever Crane, took place in January 2024, where option of the new bridge and connection structure was presented. A final feasibility report is due to be complete this month and will outline the present option to be taken forward to the next design stage. Correct design, which is look to carry on in 2024 and 2025. This will be the next update will be provided in September area forum. If any further information and question, please contact to your local councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Shakil. Yes, it's up on the screen, guys, a reminder how to feed in to future updates to the plan. Obviously, at area forum, contacting your councillors. Not everything's guaranteed, but everything will be considered. We're currently working on the best way internally of making it easier for residents to actually feed into this process so you can make suggestions for things to go on the action plan. Okay? You can also email me directly as Chair or Vice Chair Adesh, and we will take that forward. This is a work in progress. I'll take one more from the lady at the back. Hello.
Can everyone hear me? I've got to give it you. Oh, you've got to give it to me. Okay. When are we going to have a forum that you're actually going to listen to every single individual person that's actually in this room? We're all here because we're all fed up with just something or other, whether it's housing, whether it's the area that we live in, it's the pits, just absolutely everything. Why is there no like forums to local estates like there used to be?
That's a very good question, and I'm all for like the housing associations in the town centre, the people who live in the different blocks, forming committees on that. But can I just ask Elliot to come in, who is a director? So it's a good point. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. What I'd just say is that kind of in terms of engagement as a whole, obviously the area forums are part of that in terms of how the council can engage with its residents. But you're right in terms of there's that local piece as well, the really local piece on estates, on groups of streets, etc. I don't know if you're a council tenant or you're a private resident, but what the council is doing, and I would look out for it at the council's May cabinet meeting, there's going to be a paper on the whole new radical overhaul of consultation and engagement. So whilst the area forums are very much at the centrepiece of how we engage, we're going to be developing lots of new mechanisms, new opportunities for people to get involved on that local level, whether that is through the tenants and leaseholders committees that are going to be set up, whether that's more local opportunities in the streets in and around where you live, whether that's through the online platforms. There will be a space for people to have their say. However, what I would just remind all residences as well is that one of the reasons and one of the sort of the new approaches to area forums has been to get the council services here beforehand. So we do have that hour or so before the formal meeting starts, whereby there's always a good representation of council services like the ones you've said, whether it's...
Sorry, I would disagree with you. There was no one from Highways here at all today. I'm sorry,
no,
I don't agree with you.
Well, I hadn't finished when you can't agree... 1 second. So generally, there's a good and there was a good representation of services here tonight. Not every service at every forum granted. Hounslow Highways do tend to come along to all of our 7 area forums. We did have housing here tonight, and that is an opportunity where individual residents can have those moments, Chair, with individual services. Now, I do recognise that people do sometimes want to air their points in public to see if other people feel the same and share those thoughts. So we've always committed to the open forum, and that is a moment to do that, but time is precious. So it is a balance, but I think we're trying to get there in terms of making sure there are opportunities for people to have their say at area forums, to do it in private at a table one-to-one, but also to develop other forums through our radical overhaul. So I would say watch this space, Chair.
Yeah, that's absolutely vital work, and it is happening, and we'll do that. Thank you very much. Can I come in? Yes, Emily.
Just really quickly on your point about staff coming. No, I hear you. That's okay. So we can feed that back to Highways, but as you may know, we've actually had 3 forums this week and we've got 2 next week. Unfortunately, that's the way the diary's fallen. So our staff are extremely stretched across forums, which isn't an excuse. And we've heard that, planning weren't here today and they were requested quite a lot, and Highways are always requested. We did have traffic and transport, and they can pick those bits up. We also had ward improvement who can also pick those bits up. So maybe we as a team need to do a better job at explaining that to our residents. But we do have other teams that can pick those bits up. on behalf of highways, but I do take your point. And as you'll be told about feedback as you leave, if there is a particular team that you are missing today, we can always request them and do our best to get them here. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, we tend to have departments on a sort of rota, Tony, so it sort of works like that. But your point is well made, and they're one of those that should be regular attenders. Shakil, Councillor Akram would like to make a brief comment on this, followed by Ragwinder Sidhu.
Thank you, Chair. We also would like to update to you and share some information that every Tuesday in the Tuesday and Thursday family community hub in Feltham Assembly Hall 2 to 5. If any local resident want to see any officers, traffic, police, housing, any issue cannot come in the family assembly hub and then discuss with them and have an issue and concern with them. And also, every month, all local councillors have a surgery. If anyone have to see the councillors, like Feltham North, every Saturday, first Saturday of the month, we have a surgery in Feltham Assembly Hall, 10 to 12. You don't need to get any appointment. You can come and see to us. We are very happy to give the answer and resolve your issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shakil. Ragwinder Sidhu.
Thank you, Chair. So, yes, I just want to say, councillor surgery, we are Bedfont councillors in Bedfont Library, third Saturday of a week. So anybody can come without appointment. We are there from 10 till 12.
And the Feltham West team are on the third Saturday of each month, 10 till 12 in Feltham Library. Kuldeep Tak.
For Feltham North, we also have one surgery in Feltham Library on every fourth Saturday. So for there's one advantage with Feltham North. You have a surgery on first Saturday and fourth Saturday. The first Saturday is here in Feltham Assembly Hall. The fourth Saturday is in Feltham Library.
Thank you, Kuldeep. Thank you, members. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for coming this evening. The next meeting, I believe, is on a Wednesday, we're told, the 5th of June, which would be unusual because they're nearly always Thursdays. But I'll leave you with this, a piece of late information. Michael Caine is 91 today, and not many people know that. Thank you for coming, folks. Have a lovely evening. Cheers, George.